Welcome to Nintendo Ninja News. I'm your host, Chris Tysis, and we are here to celebrate someone's birthday. It's a special Nintendo console's birthday, and it is... I did it wrong, but that's alright. The Nintendo 64's birthday. Yes, 25 years ago, this was released on June the 23rd, if I'm correct, of 1996. For the Australians at home, yes, it did come out in 1998, so we're sort of celebrating the 23rd birthday. I think it came out... when did it come out? Yes, my special notes are down here. So basically, it came out on March the 1st, 1997, both for Australia and Europe, and Brazil was September the 29th, 96. Really? Brazil got it earlier than us? Bloody hell. North America got it on September the 26th, 96 in limited quantities, and then it came out on the 29th. But Japan, of course, got it first because, hey, that's where Nintendo comes from. So this beautiful console, the third generation of Nintendo consoles after the Super Nintendo, had wonderful amount of games, of course. If you flip over... such classics such as Mario Kart 64, which I played a lot of. GoldenEye 007, I played a lot of. Super Mario 64, I don't think I've really ever completed that game. I wasn't the biggest fan of it. I was more of a Banjo-Kazooie fan, which is not on the box. Obviously, it didn't really come out early. But Diddy Kong Racing was a cool game. Of course, Star Fox 64, that was sort of the name of... well, we sort of call it here in Australia. Then you got Star Wars, Shadows of the Empire, and Top Gear Rally on the box here. But this is still a really cool box for that type of thing. So, while we put this over here, I got the N64 box. I got the N64 box probably... would have been 99, year 2000, so a few years after its release for me. And it sold about 32 million, around 33 million. Obviously, it got, unfortunately, crushed by the original PlayStation that came out. The decision for it to still have cartridges was a bit of a controversial decision. It didn't have as much storage as compared to CDs and things like that. But who cares about the negative aspects of the N64? Because despite it not selling as much, it really did have some groundbreaking games that changed the gaming world, especially Super Mario 64 in terms of its 3D, its analog control stick that it had on the controller, all that sort of amazing stuff that we have seen with the N64 over its time. And it's pretty amazing that it had all these games that people still think fondly of, like Mario Kart 64, Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time is still seen as one of the greatest games of all time. Majora's Mask is also seen as one of the best Zelda games of all time. It's still beloved by a lot of fans. But you also have Rare as a games development company making these amazing games like Banjo-Kazooie, Banjo-Tooie, GoldenEye, Perfect Dark. I sank in a lot of hours and support and, playing as Joe in the Dark, many, many nights, as well as James Bond. And also, too, this console was the first to do 4 players, which was amazing back in the day. I thought 2-player stuff was cool on the Sega Master System and, and the Super Nintendo. You can still do 2-player stuff on that. But really, the N64 really opened up that 4-player stuff that was really gave you a lot more multiplayer stuff. Like Mario Party series started on it. And all these sort of great multiplayer games that I remembered back in the day. And there was some great single-player games as well, which I enjoyed. So the console itself had 4 meg of memory. This is kind of cute, I guess. 64-bit NEC VR 4300. That's the CPU. That's pretty old. It's pretty old. The best-selling game was obviously Super Mario 64 at 11.62 million, which was interesting to see. And it had obviously this console was started to be dropped on in the early 90s. We had heard about this Ultra 64 thing. I think they were originally going to call it the Ultra 64, but I think there was some naming issues and copyright, trademarks issues with that, and they called it the Nintendo 64, which was fine. But I was also a fan of all the crazy sort of, not crazy, but all the different accessories that I liked when I was a kid and a teenager, I guess. When the N64 came out, it had like the Rumble Pack with Star Fox 64, which was so amazing to play. The rumbling in your hands, I'm like, what crazy technology is this? And you had the memory card as well for additional memory. But you also had the transfer pack. And the fact that you could play, Pokemon on the big screen was a pretty cool thing. Of course, yes, you can do that with the Super Game Boy and the Super Nintendo. But, you also had Pokemon Stadium, where you could see your Pokemon in 3D, which was really impressive, as well as Pokemon Stadium 2, which could do gold and silver games. And I think for me, this was like, obviously the first push into 3D. I think that's the big thing that people will talk about this console, was the move from 2D to 3D is probably as big as, that move from 3D to virtual reality is probably that next big step up. Nowadays consoles are just like mini PCs, just better graphics, better sound, different features. Yeah, it looks nicer in 4K nowadays, but I don't think you'll see such a leap that you will in gaming as you would from 2D games to 3D, which was such a big thing back in the mid-90s. And I know even a couple developers, once they saw the demo of Super Mario 64, they probably scrapped their games and started from scratch, thinking that, how are we going to compete against something like that? And it was really such a big change. And there were also great, back in the days when Nintendo also did sports games like, snowboarding, and Pilot Wing 64 was a cool game. And all that sort of thing. There was just so many cool things about the console. I'm just looking at any other interesting notes from here. But for me, I think my favorite old console, I mean, it's a bit hard because, I got my Donkey Kong trilogy that I love on the Super Nintendo. But I think for the N64, it probably is still my favorite retro console. It's the console that really got me into Nintendo, as well as the Super Nintendo that I got a little earlier than the 64. And it was an amazing console for its time. I had a lot of fun and enjoyment of it. And, it sits up there, proudly up there. It's one of the console boxes that I really wanted to get. You have all the different little generations up there. But I think the N64 is still looked at with a lot of fond memories at the 25-year mark, which is pretty amazing. It's a lot. I'm feeling pretty old now, I suppose. But it's been an amazing little journey for the console. Obviously, I would like to hear what your memories are of the Nintendo 64. I'm interested to hear about that. I will be doing a couple more videos about it, talking to people about the Nintendo 64 and the success of it and how people feel about it today and what it was like for them playing it back, 23 years ago. If you live in Australia, it's not quite the anniversary for us, but back in the days, we didn't have worldwide console launches as we do now. It was a bit stagnant based on countries and different parts of the world, I suppose. But I thought that I would acknowledge the birthday of the Nintendo 64, and yeah, it was an amazing console. I really, really enjoyed it. But yes, we'll be chatting more about it, and some of the other anniversaries too. Super Mario 64 turns 25 as well. Such a game-breaking game. You know, I think there maybe was some nerves about, you know, what would Mario be like as a side-scrolling platformer would go as a 3D, and no one was worried about Mario being in 3D when we saw Super Mario 64. Hey. But a big happy birthday to the N64. Yes, the grey console and all the colourful consoles versions that came afterwards, which looked very awesome. I remembered the gold controller for The Legend of Zelda. I think it was gold for GoldenEye or gold for Zelda. I think it was a bit of both, I suppose, hey. But a big happy birthday, the Nintendo 64. Let me know in the comments about your memories of the Nintendo 64. And yeah, I think that's all we've got to say, I think, for now. So that is it for me, and I shall see you next time.